Hello, my dear friends. Good morning and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I actually have a Kringle candle for you today, which goes under their line Country Candle right here. And obviously this is an homage to old school Yankee Candle with the old school apothecary kind of jars. They had Country Candle in their rotation, Kringle rotation, for several years. And for several, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5, something like that. I was actually quite fond of Country Candle, and yes, I am speaking in the past tense because as of this year, they have discontinued the Country Candle line. Now, they still have a lot of Country Candles still on their website to sell, but once they sell out, they sell out. They are not being renewed. And this candle is actually still on the website, which made me think that I actually could do a review of it. I wasn't going to, I was just gonna include it in my empties, but frankly, I enjoyed the candle so much that I thought it is deserving of a review. It took me a while, obviously, to burn through it, and I think the fragrance deserves it, and who knows what is going on with that company, honestly. Yes, they've discontinued Country Candle, but maybe we haven't seen the last of it. And maybe this lemon tea and roses scent will come back in some other iteration, and for posterity, this review will become useful again. Who knows? This was in there, this is a fairly recent candle for them, this lemon tea and roses. I want to say, I don't think it was this spring, but it was maybe last spring when this one came out. But unfortunately, it was in that first wave of country candles that they reformulated to be 100% soy. So right before they discontinued, or in my personal opinion, ran Country Candle into the ground, their last kind of the nail in the coffin was that this collection, or this fleet that had been 100% paraffin for years, was made 100% soy in order to match the 100% soy that they had in their other Kringle candles. I thought that was a huge mistake. There are many of us who love paraffin, love the way that it communicates fragrance, and because I'm an old school Yankee girl that grew up with it in the 80s and 90s, I really kind of liked the nostalgia of even the shape and silhouette as well. So I was a big Country Candle fanatic, abhorred the switch to soy, although at least initially I was hopeful because the reports were that triple the amount of scent oils were going into these new 100% soy Country Candles to compensate for the fact that soy has a very low fragrance ceiling in terms of output. And there was a great deal of attention and time given to these, new soy candles. And to be perfectly honest, there were a few select 100% soy candles in the Kringle line that I really liked and that actually performed decently. A couple of them even more than decently. So at least from recent memory, Away in a Manger, for instance, their spiced orange candle from the holiday season, in my experience, that candle gives a good 7 to 8. Which is extremely high for 100% soy formula. So it's not impossible and it's not unheard of. It's just not likely and very rare for a soy candle to perform that well. So I initially had a great deal of hope for, even although I did have, I had my skepticism, I did really hope that this soy takeover of the Country line would go better than it did. Spoiler alert, it did go quite badly. And everybody was so unhappy by the end of the year, the people who wanted everything to be 100% soy still didn't like the Country candles, didn't like the shape, didn't like the colors, thought that they burned worse than the regular ones. Even they weren't content. And then, of course, those of us who loved it for the 100% paraffin didn't like it. And so it was just the ultimate demise of the Country Candle line, which is unfortunate. At any rate, long preamble over. This was, and you can tell from kind of the soy smut all the way around it. This is, you know, an 100% soy. It burned the way that it burned. Let's get into that. This was one of their new candles from the spring lineup. And I ended up getting a lot of daylights at a certain point from that collection. I didn't buy them all straight out. But I liked this one enough in daylight form that when there was a major sale, I went ahead and got this one, and I'm really glad that I did, frankly. This is another thing that bit the dust. This is in medium size. Gosh, I love the medium sizes. It had the same diameter and the same 2 wicks of a large tumbler, but you can get through it much more quickly, which means that there's less of a chance for wick issues or sooting issues than a large tumbler. And for those of us that burn a lot of candles, it's a kind of a relief to have this smaller size for sure. So I'm a huge fan of mediums. Unfortunately, mediums have bit the dust, and I don't know why. My impression is that there are a lot of you out there that also like medium, provided that the medium does have the same diameter and the same wicks as your larger form. That was my sense. But then one of you guys, Riley, you told me that the CEO said that when she expressed that to him, that McKittrick said that they weren't selling, that they don't sell the way that the large tumblers do. So I'm kind of surprised by that, frankly. But if that is actually correct, then I bow to all of you as consumers. The democracy, the market has won, you know. You all don't like the mediums. All right. I do personally. I wish I could persuade you because I really think they're cheaper than the large ones, and I think they're really dear. A really dear size, the perfect size for me personally. All right, but anyway, and I bought this obviously when it was on a big sale for mediums. So the notes on, wait, let me grab the notes here for lemon tea and roses. Lemon tea and roses are, well, it has a scent story. Allow the refreshing symphony of grapefruit, green tea, and bergamot to take you on a fragrant journey where the elegance of jasmine and violets mingles with the herbal charm of basil and mint, all resting on a soothing base of moss, amber, sandalwood, and musk, creating a beautifully balanced blend that inspires both invigoration and tranquility. It's not bad as a scent story. It's a little wordy, and some of the adjectives are probably not correct, but I think this is Kringle making an effort for sure. What is interesting is that it says refreshing symphony of grapefruit and green tea, whereas the name is lemon tea. So there is a little bit of a kind of a cross purposes there in terms of their marketing. The top notes are lemon and grapefruit. So there you go, lemon, grapefruit, bergamot, and green tea. Those are your top notes. Your mid notes are jasmine, violet, basil, mint, and rose. And your base notes are moss, amber, sandalwood, and musk. So right off, what you're noticing is that while the name is lemon tea and roses, both of those fragrance notes, lemon and roses at least, are representative of 2 fragrance categories that are very well represented in this candle. Another way of saying, yes, they've put lemon on the front, but in the candle they have given us lemon, grapefruit, and bergamot, all of which are going to have a similar scent profile, if that makes sense. So perhaps we shouldn't take lemon tea and roses, or at least the lemon and roses component of this title, literally. You have a very citrus forward candle, and particularly a tart one, because lemon, grapefruit, and bergamot go more tart than they go sweet. Yeah. And then roses, you do have rose in here, but you also have violet, which shouldn't sound too much, and jasmine. And this was a period perhaps that we're still in where Kringle was overusing jasmine. So jasmine is going to be quite loud, possibly very loud white floral. And then the question is whether rose is going to be loud enough for it to be an actually rosy fragrance, if that makes sense. And then you have kind of this herbal tea component. It says green tea, which has a distinctly different smell than a black tea, and basil and mint. So they are going in a very green, almost leafy direction here with that herbal tea rather than black. At least that's what it looks like on paper when we smell it. To be perfectly honest, when you smell it, it seems almost more like a black tea at the base of this. Whatever that tea component is, it is what is kind of anchoring it. And they say amber, sandalwood, and musk and moss. Why would you have those in this anyway? Why would you have sandalwood and moss? Well, I guess it might amplify kind of the green component. This fragrance hits mid-range. So as with a lot of soy candles, especially with all of those really bright citrus notes, the base notes are going to get lost in this. Soy is not particularly good at capturing base notes, especially if there are other things in the fragrance that are communicated a lot better and a lot clearer. Soy is much better with the high bright notes than the basier ones. Frankly, soy is just bad at communicating fragrance with clarity across the board, but you have a much better chance of clarity with a really sharp, especially acidic or high note for sure. That's just gonna come across more clearly than a more gentle or soft or subtle base note, yeah? So this is definitely mid-range to high range. There's no ginger in this candle, but if you will, it kind of mimics ginger in that there's a real sharpness that is not particularly sweet. It's like a really bracing kind of sharpness. And perhaps I'm thinking of, Bath & Body Works has that tea candle. What is that tea candle? Oh my gosh, it escapes me. You guys will know what it is. It's like a green tea and sage or something like that. Tea and sage, something, whatever else. It's a fairly popular candle for Bath & Body Works. White tea and sage. It comes out quite a bit, especially in the spring, frankly. And it might have a ginger component, which is maybe why I'm going that direction. I don't know that I've ever burned that candle. Do you know how many times I've picked up that candle from Bath & Body Works and set it back down? Like there's something I kind of like about it, but something that just also seems kind of generic and like just perfumey and like not my thing, I think I'm always disappointed when I pick up that candle from Bath & Body Works because I want it to be more stripped down. I want it to be like a true tea and a true sage, I want more clarity with the herbal dimension and the tea dimension, but it's really more of a perfume and conceptual with some herbal and tea-like overtures, yeah? This is a similar candle in that it's really kind of a conceptual, but I actually think that this candle is a bit more biting than the Bath & Body Works one is. In terms of the floral, to be honest, it's a perfume floral. It's not like really like a super authentic floral, like the way that floral candles are. This is more of a like floral oil that would go into more of a perfume. Yeah, I do think that there is some rose in this. I do. And because I think it's more than one floral. I think it's a red rose. And I think it's also a jasmine at the same time. But like I said, they're just not blooming in a particularly authentic way to make it like a floral conceptual. This is much more of a perfume conceptual with some floral elements, with some herbal elements, with some tea-like elements. But they definitely haven't shortchanged the tea component, which, like I said, seems more like a black tea than a green tea to me. The black tea component, and oh man, there's a lot of citrus too. I haven't talked about the citrus. It's a high citrus, and it's the kind of citrus that you would associate with like a lemon ginger, for instance. If you don't like grapefruit, I don't think you need to be super bothered here. It's not a grapefruit any more than it is a lemon, any more than it is a bergamot. But if I had to guess which one it was, just on cold, I would say lemon. So in that sense, lemon tea is probably the appropriate, moniker there. And I would go with rose as well, because I do think there might be a little bit more rose in here than jasmine. So in that sense, actually lemon tea and roses does make sense. The blurb doesn't kind of muddies that a little bit, but I do think that that is correct. That there probably is lemon, grapefruit, and bergamot, and I'm smelling mostly lemon. That there is jasmine, violet, and rose, but I'm smelling mostly rose, for instance. And I do think there is a tea component, although they say it's green, I just think it comes across as black. In terms of the basil, the mint, the moss, yes, I think there is a green leafy dimension to this. But to be honest, it seems more like a lemongrass, and it may just be that it's up against the lemon and that vaguely herbal green component. So not a dried herb, but like a true leafy herb. With the lemon is just kind of, it's a soft lemongrass, frankly. Or like a lemon verbena. Lemon verbena might be closer, to be honest. Yeah, I would say a lemon verbena, black tea, rose. And it's got, like I said, a real sharpness and a real bite to it. I kind of liked it, and I liked it even more once it was burning, to be honest. And it was consistent enough in its fragrance output that I burned it all the way down, and I kept it in my it was not in my guest bathroom. I never had to take it to the guest bathroom. It was in my back master bedroom. I would leave it in the master bathroom, and then it's filled into the master bedroom. And the fragrance output was never so small that I felt like I had to take it to a smaller space. That said, it didn't do well in the open concept. It just didn't. It's not strong enough for it. And I would say that in the back bedroom, after multiple hours, I could definitely get it up to at least a 6 or 6.5. And I was really happy with that. That was fine. It is kind of a very sharp, spicy, and by spicy, I don't mean like true spice, but with the black tea and the citrus, it kind of has that spicy bite to it, kind of fragrance. I would have loved for it to be more of an open concept kind of house filler. I think it would just, in terms of the fragrance profile, feel better out there than in my bedroom. But I was happy enough with the bedroom, and there's enough perfumey overtones to this with the amber and the rose that it wasn't entirely out of place in my back bedroom. Yeah. Would I repurchase it again? Maybe if it was a really good price. Let's talk about burn quality. And this is often the case with soy. The fragrance output on it was a little bit inconsistent, but it wasn't like hugely inconsistent. Soy can sometimes be hugely inconsistent. You sometimes feel as though you're getting a different fragrance from day to day. Certain notes are coming out, certain ones aren't. One day you get a normal strength and throw, the next day you get no strength and throw. It doesn't seem to hold fragrance quite as evenly as like paraffin does, for instance. This one had some variations, but for a soy candle was actually fairly consistent. If it had been less consistent, I definitely wouldn't repurchase it. So it was fairly consistent in terms of the fragrance output. Again, not particularly high, but not super low either. The issue was the wicks on this one, actually, and I do believe that this was when they were having major wick issues, especially with their country candle line. With these wicks, have you had this happen with wicks before, where they get so burned and so charred that like, or sometimes with incense, it's the same way. Like you're trying to light it, but there's literally nothing to light because it's just charcoal or something. Well, that doesn't make sense. It's just charred. It's been burnt so crispy that it like won't light. It won't light. And you have to cut it down to a place where you have enough wick underneath the char to like light up. It's like it doesn't have enough fuel to actually light. That's how these wicks were. After about the third burn, I would go to, and they would be a perfectly decent like size. I wouldn't have to snip them down, but I could not burn them. Like they would not light. And so every single time I would have to cut these wicks down to tiny nubs to get it to a place where it would relight. And sometimes that meant cutting it down too far and then it wouldn't pull properly. And of course, then the strength and throw component is just gonna drop really down too. So I became quite expert at trimming exactly the right amount that it would light, but not down far enough that it wouldn't pool. But you have to kind of become an expert at that. So if you do end up getting this candle, just be aware that you are gonna have to nurse the wicks and be extra special. Like you're gonna have to baby them in order to get them to light and to keep them a certain size that it'll be able to like burn the candle. And that sweet spot, you have very little margin for error. I'll put it that way. And there were a couple burns where I would walk into the back bedroom after hours of burning and be like, why can't I smell my candle? Because I was coming to expect at least a 6.5 out of this, you know, in the back bedroom. There were even times I got it up to a 7, and I would walk into the master bathroom and I would be like, well, that's why. Because like they were like tiny puny ones and they just couldn't pull out. They just couldn't, they were down too low, you know? But I am very grateful to say that it only happened like 2 times where they got super puny like that. And the next time I went to burn them, I was able to trim them enough to get them to light and also for them to be fine, you know? So I was able in that way to burn it all the way down. And I, at least with this particular candle, was able to have mostly success in that respect and mostly a good fragrance output. I bought this one along too because this actually came out around the same time at Bath & Body Works, Queen Charlotte's Tea. If you are a Bath & Body Works person, I actually think that this green tea one is more similar to this Queen Charlotte's tea than the white tea and sage or whatever else it is. Because this Queen Charlotte's tea has an enormous amount of, it has like this is a true bergamot though. This is not, it might be lemon too. What does it say on the bottom? Rich bergamot, bold citrus. It's probably both citrus and bergamot, just like the Kringle one. This says black tea. Yeah. And honestly, these fragrances are very similar. Very similar. This one is a bit sweeter and has more floral in it than the Queen Charlotte's Tea does. This one doesn't really have so much floral, but it makes up for it. Again, and this one almost seems to have a ginger bite to it. But again, it has kind of a green component that goes lemon verbena-like. So very similar. I burned this one all the way through, by the way. I will try to link this review down below. I liked this one so much that this is a repurchase for me, so I do have this one. This was kind of a tea conceptual as well. It felt like it might just be a tea, but then the component of the herbal dimension to this, along with something that was vaguely floral, made this more of a tea conceptual than just a straight up tea fragrance. It was actually a really nice candle and it performed really well as well. Very similar to this one from Kringle. I would say that if you like Queen Charlotte's Tea, you're probably gonna like Lemon Tea and Roses, with the caveat being if you really don't like rose, like some people don't like rose. And this is a much more it's a touch more floral than the Queen Charlotte's tea is. So just be prepared for that. If that doesn't bother you, they are very similar candles. And yeah, this is why I think to myself, this just comes across as more black tea than green tea. Yeah. All right, that's what I've got for you. Like I said, I wasn't even gonna like review it, but to be honest, I liked it enough. I really did, and it's still available on the website. So there you go. And it's available in medium on the website. So I'm sure, because they're getting rid of these ones, I'm sure that in the next few months, you will start seeing some major sales on these country candle ones. You should be able to get it quite cheap. Hang on to it. Try it next spring. It's a great fragrance for spring, especially that early spring where it's still quite cold. And the green tea in it is just sharp and maybe a little bit on the cozy side. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's not a late spring candle where you want something that's a little bit more blooming, a little bit more outdoorsy, but this is fantastic for March or something like that, which is exactly when it was introduced. So yeah, it's not changing my life, but I thought it was good. I really did. So yeah, and I think Queen Charlotte's tea is good as well. So there you go. I would recommend them both in the same breath, to be perfectly honest. I do think Queen Charlotte's tea performed better. It has 3 wicks, and it is a soy blend rather than 100% soy. I think it's a little bit brighter and a little bit clearer and a little bit stronger. So there is that. But other than that, I think, especially if you're a 100% soy person, that this is a very good candle that's similar to this one in a lot of respects. There you go, my friends. Something to think about for spring. Maybe just kind of be looking on the Kringle website. I'm sure that they'll be clearancing it off. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. I'll catch you in the next one.